Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here today for our Quick Tip Thursday session. Today's session is going to be how to eliminate banding noise in 2 simple steps. Banding noise is image noise that appears in images as colored lines that extend for various lengths across an image. And it's a very, very challenging type of noise to remove. So we're going to be working on this image here to start off with. Let me just scroll on into it. So you can really start to see what banding noise looks like. Within this image, you can see it has a ton of contrast noise and color noise, but you can also see these lines that almost, again, look like colored lines that are going across the image either vertically or horizontally. Now, this particular image, you see a lot more of these horizontal lines than you do vertical, but the vertical lines are there. This is both vertical and horizontal banding noise. And even though it appears as colored lines, it's not only colored noise or color noise, there's also a significant amount of contrast noise within these bands of noise as well. Well, Topaz DeNoise, I believe it was with Topaz DeNoise 5, we released a new module within that program that included our banding noise module, and it's pretty much the most simple way of removing heavy banding noise like this in 1 or 2 simple steps. So let's just hop on in. Let me show you this before and after really quickly. Here's my after. I removed the banding noise in just 2 quick steps, and then I went on to actually remove the rest of the image noise, which took a little bit longer, but let's show you that again. Here's before and after. And before I get started, let me go ahead and pull up this information for the actual image itself. I have some people asking about this. This camera and model was Pentax K20D, and the exposure was 1/15 of a second at f8 ISO 3200. It was an aperture priority, and the flash was not on. So just to give you some information about the image. But let's take this original background copy. I'm going to make a quick copy of it, and we'll go into Topaz DeNoise. When you're dealing with heavy banding noise like this that really stands out, it is going to be the very first thing you want to deal with. Let me go ahead and get this to 100%. Okay, let me press reset all down here on the lower right. So we get back to our noisy image, and I'll just kind of scroll around here. Again, I'm at this 100% just to show off the banding noise. You can really start to see it vertically when you go in here. It's a little bit tougher to see the vertical ones. They're a little bit thicker lines and softer, but you can just start to see a pattern of vertical lines happening here. And then as you come down, you can really see the heavy horizontal banding coming through, which should be very apparent on your screen. Let me go ahead and take this auto brighten preview up to strong so you can see it even more. So we should see those colored bands going across. Now our banding or our debanding module is at the bottom of our denoise workflow here on the right hand side in the adjustment panel. It's best if you start off with the debanding module and then move on to the rest of your noise reduction. So within the debanding module, I promised only 2 steps, and here they are. You just click on the horizontal and then click on the vertical. And I've now removed my horizontal and vertical banding noise. So let me show you that one more time. I'm adding back in the vertical, I'm adding back in the horizontal, and we'll click on that horizontal. Here's before and after. And even though you're not able to really see that vertical banding as clearly as the horizontal, I still see some sort of pattern of vertical lines happening. So I'm just going to click on that vertical, and you can see it just smooths out and those lines disappear. So again, here's before and after. So those are 2 simple steps just to get rid of both horizontal and vertical banding noise. Now below that we have our banding width. So this is going to just carry on just a little bit further. Sometimes you'll see some leftover bands that are a little bit thicker than the rest of the banding noise. And I don't really see it within this image. I actually see a little bit right here within the statue itself. So if you see that not all of the lines were removed, and if they are thicker lines than the majority of what were just removed, you can take that banding width and move it up. And it's going to include larger lines or larger bands at that point. If you see smaller lines, thinner lines, you can take your banding width to the negative part to remove those smaller lines. The only thing you have to keep an eye out for as you move this banding width is that you don't bring back any sort of bands. So the 20 default is usually, I'd say 99% of the time for banding noise will remove the bands. And this banding width rarely needs to be moved up or down. But when you do need to do it, you can. So now that I've done that, I can quickly go in and do the rest of my noise reduction. So let me just do that process real quick. I'm going to go into my Luma mode, and this is going to show me just my grayscale noise, which is my contrast noise. I'm just going to take my overall strength up to about 0.25. I'm focusing in on my mid-tone areas, trying to maintain detail while still removing the majority of the noise. Here's before and after. I still have some heavier noise in my shadows, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust my shadows as well. Ooh, that looks great. I'm also going to take my correct black level down. Don't need that right now. I'm going to take my adjust highlight all the way down to actually bring some detail and the perception of noise back into my highlights. That looks good to bring some detail back in. So when I get down to my adjust color red, I'm going to go into my red preview mode and just take my red to the right. If I see these dots of patterns of red noise, I know that I need to work on that. And I always tell people just keep moving your slider up until you start to flatten out the large areas of tone. So here I'm looking at the background wall, and if I've mainly gotten out all of the texture of that channel noise, I'm pretty good to go. Once I get into my adjust color blue, I'll just go into my blue mode and do the same thing. So now I've worked my red and blue channel noise. All right, so once we get down to our clean color, that is just going to help you remove and clean up any residual color noise that's left out there. The red and blue color channels will really help get the majority of the noise, but sometimes you're left with large patches of haze or anything like that. You can see it over here on the wall. You have these larger patches of magenta. And here's where we started. So we've gone a long way, but we just want to clean it up. And that's what the clean color will do. It'll also clean up the edge noise, edge color noise that might be left over. So I'm just going to take that up, flatten everything out. That looks pretty good. When I get down to my correct black level, I'm going to go back into my RGB mode. And I'm also going to turn my auto brightness off so I can actually see what my blacks are supposed to be looking like. I'm going to go to an area of my image where I see darker black areas to see if my blacks are looking good. If they have any sort of color haze, like a magenta haze like we have over here on the left, you can use this correct black level to take those closer to black. Now you need to watch out. If you take it up too high, you'll start to actually introduce some green in there, and that's really how it's fighting that magenta haze, is by bringing some green shadow areas in. So if you see that green being produced, just take it back down, kind of try to even it out to exactly where you want. That looks pretty good. Once you're there, you can go into the actual detail recovery mode, and I'm just going to quickly go in and bring back some detail. When I'm working with my recover detail, I'm keeping an eye on my flat, open, toned areas like our backgrounds here, making sure that I'm bringing back all the detail that I want to, but I'm not adding any artifacts into these large areas. Same thing with the reduced blur. That looks pretty good. Here's before, here's after. I'm maintaining all of my image detail and even my image texture, which is really difficult to do when you have this heavy, heavy noise happening. Last thing that I always like to do is actually add grain into the image because it helps to increase the perception of detail even if the detail isn't there. And it also helps to mask any sort of artifacts that might be being created while you're trying to recover that detail. So it'll just kind of even out the texture a lot and give the image a sense of reality and give it some texture back in there. If you've removed a lot of noise, you've probably removed significant amount of the detail that might have been in those flatter areas. So adding grain really helps to make it look more realistic again. So here we are before and after. I would probably work on this a tiny bit more, but I'm pretty happy. So it's that quick to remove. It just took, what, 2 clicks for us to remove the actual banding noise. And then a couple minutes to remove the rest of this very heavy image noise in a very specific way. So if you deal with indoor images like this, high ISO, low lights, handheld imagery that might produce this heavier banding noise effect or even just heavy ISO noise, denoise really will save you a ton of time in the long run. So let's go ahead and scroll in. Here we are at 100% again. Here's our before image. Check out that banding noise over here and after. And then once you have that noise out, you can go in and process the image exactly the way you want without having to really worry about anything. I think I ended up taking this into clarity just to add a little bit of contrast boost, especially bringing my blacks back down to a black area. Then I was playing around with possibly taking it into black and white effects or adjust to give it a little bit of pop, but haven't done that yet, but you can take this image wherever you want to go at this point. So that is our Quick Tip Thursday of how to eliminate banding noise in 2 simple steps, just 2 clicks, horizontal and vertical. All right, thanks everybody, and we will be talking to you next week. Bye-bye.